My mother ignored me my entire life while worshiping my sister. When I announced my wedding, she said she wouldn't attend to not overshadow her favorite. So, I got married without her and gave a viral speech that destroyed her reputation. I'm 27 years old. I work in digital marketing, and honestly, I don't know if I did the right thing. But I need to tell this story because it basically destroyed my relationship with my mother, and half my family hates me now while the other half says I should have done this years ago. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was a kid and my sister Audrey was, the perfect golden child who never did anything wrong. I don't remember much from when we were really little, to be honest. But what I do remember perfectly is when I was like 8 years old and Audrey was 10, and she won a spelling bee at school. My mother, Diane, threw this whole party, invited the extended family, made a huge cake shaped like a dictionary. I'm not kidding. And basically treated Audrey like she'd won the Nobel Prize. I had won the same spelling bee the year before. Like literally the same competition, and my mother took me out for ice cream. Just the two of us. She didn't even take pictures. I grew up with this. You know what I mean? It was always like that. Audrey got good grades, and my mother told everyone about it, posted her report cards on Facebook, bragged about her to her clients at her hair salon. I also got good grades, sometimes better than Audrey's, and my mother would say, "Oh, that's nice, honey," and that was it. When Audrey learned to drive, my mother bought her a used car, a 2012 Honda Civic. I remember it perfectly because I spent years looking at that car in the garage. When I learned to drive 2 years later, my mother said she didn't have money for another car, and I could use the bus or ask Audrey for rides. The thing is, I knew my mother had money, because literally 2 months later, she went on a Caribbean cruise with her friends. But anyway, you know, that's how things were in my house, and I guess I got used to it, or rather learned not to expect anything. My father died when I was 15. Audrey was 17. And that kind of made everything worse because now my mother only had us, and her favoritism became like super obvious because there was no one else to notice it or say something to her about it. My father never really confronted it. I think he also saw that Audrey was her favorite, but didn't want to cause problems. Or maybe he thought I was imagining it. I don't know. After he died, my mother clung to Audrey in an almost obsessive way. Audrey went to college in the same city, so she lived at home, while I left to study in another city when I graduated. Not because I wanted to get away, well, maybe a little, but because the university I wanted wasn't nearby. My mother cried when Audrey announced she was moving into an apartment with her boyfriend like 20 minutes away. When I left for college 5 hours away, she helped me pack my things and basically acted like it was something normal and not a big event. I met Christopher in college. We've been together since I was 22. So, 5 years now. He's a graphic designer, works from home, and, honestly, he's the most patient and understanding person I know because he's had to deal with all this family drama of mine since we started dating. He saw how my mother treated me versus how she treated Audrey, and would always tell me, "Rach, this isn't normal. Your mom has a serious problem." And I would defend my mother. It's not that bad. That's how mothers are. Audrey is the oldest, so it's natural she has a stronger connection with her. All those excuses. I'd been repeating to myself for years to not feel so bad. Fast forward to January of this year. Audrey announced she was getting married in April, an intimate beach wedding with 50 guests. My mother literally screamed with excitement when Audrey told her, started crying, posted 1,000 photos on Facebook announcing it, and basically turned the next 3 months into the Audrey show. They went together to try on dresses every weekend. My mother paid for half the wedding, $8,000, helped plan every detail, made flower arrangements herself because she wanted everything to be perfect. And the wedding was beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. My mother gave a speech at the reception where she basically said Audrey was the perfect daughter, that she always knew she'd find someone wonderful, that she was so proud of the woman she'd become. She cried through the whole speech. I was sitting there with Christopher, smiling like you're supposed to. But inside I was like, wow, this is a whole new level. Christopher proposed to me in June. We'd been talking about getting married for a year, We'd looked at rings together. I knew it was coming, but it was still beautiful and emotional and all that. I called my mother literally 10 minutes after it happened, all excited, crying with happiness. Her first reaction, and I swear this is verbatim, was, "Oh, honey, that's nice. But don't you think it's too soon after Audrey's wedding?" I said, Mom, that was 2 months ago. And she said, yes, but she's still enjoying being the family newlywed. You don't want to overshadow her, do you? I was quiet for like 10 seconds because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Christopher was there with me, and his face was like, did she seriously just say that? I told my mother we'd talk later and hung up. I thought maybe I'd overreacted, that maybe my mother was just having a bad day or something. I waited a week and called her to tell her that Christopher and I wanted to get married in October, like 6 months after Audrey's wedding, thinking that would be enough time. My mother got serious and said, Rachel, I don't think that's a good idea. I asked her why, and she started with this whole explanation about how Audrey had waited years for this moment, how she'd planned her perfect wedding, how my wedding was going to make people compare and that wasn't fair to Audrey. I said, Mom, it's my wedding. It has nothing to do with Audrey. And she said, it has everything to do with Audrey because she's your older sister, and she got married first, and you can't just throw a bigger, better wedding and ruin her special year. And that's when I realized my mother wasn't worried about Audrey. She was worried that I was going to have something better, something that would take attention away from her favorite daughter. I told her, Mom, we're going to do a small wedding, like 100 people. Nothing extravagant. And she said, it doesn't matter how small it is, you're going to be stealing the spotlight from your sister. I asked her, so what do you want me to do? Wait until next year? And she said, that would be the considerate thing. Yes. Christopher was listening to the conversation on speakerphone and was shaking his head like, I can't believe this. I tried to reason with her. I told her we could make the wedding super simple, that I didn't expect her to help financially like she'd done with Audrey, that I just wanted her to be there. My mother said, Rachel, if you do this wedding this year, I'm not going. That's simple. I'm not going to be part of something that's going to hurt your sister. I said, have you asked Audrey how she feels? And she said, I don't need to ask her. I know she's going to feel bad. I hung up and started crying. Christopher hugged me and said, Rach, your mom is being completely irrational. You can't let this ruin our wedding. I called Audrey directly, thinking that maybe she had no idea that my mother was making all this drama. I told her that Christopher and I were getting married in October and asked her how she felt about it. Audrey was quiet for a moment and then said, honestly, Rachel, I do think it's a bit soon, but if that's what you want to do, go ahead. I asked her if she felt like I was stealing her spotlight, and she said, I don't like to use those words, but yes, I do feel like my special year is going to be like overshadowed if you also get married this year. I said, Audrey, your wedding was beautiful. No one's going to forget it because I get married 6 months later. And she said, it's not just that, Rachel. It's that you've always wanted to compete with me, and now that I finally had my moment, you have to rush to have yours. That hurt? I'm not gonna lie. Because I've never competed with Audrey. Never. I've always been in her shadow. Always been the second choice. The one who doesn't matter as much. And now that I was finally going to have my own important moment, my own mother and my own sister were telling me to wait because it wasn't my turn yet. I told Audrey, you know what? I'm doing my wedding anyway, with or without your support. And I hung up. The next few months were weird. My mother wasn't talking to me. Audrey wasn't either. I went ahead with the wedding plans. Christopher and his parents supported me completely. My friends were on my side. Even some cousins and aunts and uncles contacted me privately to tell me they thought my mother was being ridiculous. But it was painful. You know, planning your wedding, without your mother. Without my mother going with me to try on dresses, without her helping me choose flowers, without her getting excited about every detail. I hired a wedding planner because I needed support, and I didn't have it from my family. The planner, a super nice lady named Patricia, asked me in our first meeting if my mother was going to be involved, and I just started crying. I told her everything. She hugged me and said, honey, your mom is going to regret this someday. 2 weeks before the wedding, my mother sent me a text message. It said, Rachel, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think you made a mistake scheduling your wedding this year, but you're my daughter, and I don't want to lose you. So I'm going to go to the wedding. My heart kind of jumped with excitement for a second, but then I read the rest of the message. But don't expect me to be happy about it, and I'm not going to participate in any photos with Audrey because I don't want it to look like I approve of what you're doing. I responded, Mom, either you come and participate like a normal mother, or don't come at all. I don't need you there reluctantly just to say you went. She responded, then I guess I'm not going. And that was it. My mother didn't go to my wedding. The wedding day was beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. We did the ceremony in a gorgeous garden. We had like 120 guests. We ended up inviting more people than we'd originally planned. The food was amazing. Everything went perfectly. But there was an empty seat in the first row where my mother should have been. People noticed. Relatives asked me, "Where's Diane?" And I had to say, "She decided not to come." And they'd be like, "What? Why?" And I'd just smile and change the subject because I didn't want to ruin the day talking about it. The time came for speeches at the reception. Christopher's father gave a beautiful speech about us as a couple. My best friend gave a funny and emotional speech, and then it was my turn. Christopher and I had planned to say a few words together. But the night before the wedding, I told him, I need to do this alone. I need to say something. He asked me, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes. I've been quiet for 27 years, and I can't anymore." Christopher helped me write the speech. Well, more like he listened to me vent for 2 hours while I wrote everything I'd wanted to say to my mother for years. And then he helped me edit it so it didn't sound completely bitter but still told the truth. I stood in front of everyone with the microphone in my hand and my heart beating like 1,000 times a minute. I started by saying, "I want to thank everyone for being here today. It means the world to us." And then I said, "There's someone who couldn't be here today. My mother, Diane." And the room went totally silent. I kept talking. I said, "My mother decided not to come to my wedding because she felt I was getting married too soon after my sister Audrey's wedding, which was in April." I said, "I grew up being the second choice in my family, always in my older sister's shadow, always feeling like I wasn't enough, like I didn't matter as much. I could see people getting uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, but I kept going." I said, "When Audrey got married 6 months ago, my mother spent $8,000 on her wedding, went with her to every dress fitting, planned every detail, and gave a beautiful speech about how proud she was. When I announced my engagement, my mother told me to wait a year so I wouldn't overshadow Audrey. When I told her I was getting married anyway, she said she wouldn't come." The tension in the room was palpable. Some relatives had their mouths open, others were looking down. I continued. I said, "So, Mom, if you're watching this someday, because I knew someone was going to upload the video to Facebook, I want you to know that your absence today says more about you than it does about me. It says that your love is conditional, that your support has limits, that your favoritism is more important than your relationship with me." I said, "It hurt that you weren't here. I'm not going to pretend it didn't, but it also freed me. It freed me from spending my life seeking your approval, from feeling like I'm never enough, from always being second. So thank you, in a twisted way, for giving me this gift on my wedding day. The gift of finally letting go of the need for your validation." I ended the speech saying, "And to everyone else who's here today, thank you for choosing to be present, for celebrating with us, for being the family we chose." And then I raised my glass and said, "Cheers." Christopher hugged me. Some people applauded, kind of awkwardly, to be honest. Others looked like shocked. My mother-in-law was crying. Some cousins came up to me afterward to tell me I was very brave. Others clearly thought it had been inappropriate and dramatic. Turns out someone did upload the video to Facebook. I don't know who, but within hours it was circulating. Then, someone shared it on Twitter, and then on TikTok, and it literally went viral. People were sharing it with comments like, "This bride just exposed her toxic mother at her own wedding," or, "The family drama I didn't know I needed." Within 2 days, the video had like 2 million views. People I didn't even know were commenting, some saying I'd done the right thing, others saying I was a horrible, ungrateful daughter, others analyzing the family dynamics like they were expert psychologists. Christopher and I went on our honeymoon to Italy. We'd been saving for that trip for 2 years. I turned off my phone for the first 3 days because I wanted to enjoy without drama. When I turned it on, I had like 200 messages. Most were from my mother. The messages started being like, "Rachel, we need to talk, call me," and escalated to, "I can't believe you humiliated me like this. All my clients have seen that video. You've ruined my life." The last message said, "When you get back from your honeymoon, We're going to have a serious conversation about the consequences of your actions. Um, my mother called me like 10 times during the honeymoon. I didn't answer any of them. I sent her a message saying, I'm on my honeymoon. We'll talk when I get back. She responded, I don't care where you are. You've destroyed my reputation and we're going to fix this now. Christopher told me, Rach, block her for the rest of the trip. And I did. I blocked my mother, blocked Audrey, who had also sent me messages telling me I was a terrible person, and tried to enjoy my honeymoon. But honestly, I couldn't fully enjoy it because I knew what was waiting for me when I got back. We came back from Italy after 2 weeks. The day after we returned, I received a certified letter at my apartment. It was from a law firm that supposedly was called Martinez and Associates. The letter said my mother was suing me for defamation and emotional damages, and that I owed her $5,000 for damages caused to her reputation and her hair salon business. The letter explained that several of her clients had stopped going to her salon after seeing the video, that people recognized her on the street and judged her, that she'd lost income directly because of me. My heart sank. Christopher read the letter and said, This is ridiculous. She has no case. But I got scared anyway. I'd never been sued. I didn't know what to do. I called a lawyer, a guy a friend recommended. I told him the whole situation and showed him the letter. He read it and started laughing. I asked him, Why are you laughing? This is serious. And he said, Rachel, this is fake. I asked him what he meant, and he pointed out several things in the letter. First, the law firm's name was misspelled in the header. It said Martinez and Associates instead of Associates. Second, the law firm's phone number didn't work. He called it right there in front of me, and it was out of service. Third, the law firm's address didn't exist. He looked it up on Google Maps, and there was no building at that location. And fourth, the legal language was like very basic and generic, not how lawyers actually write. He told me, Your mom did this herself or paid someone to make a fake letter to scare you. It's not a real lawsuit. If it were real, you would have been served in an official way, probably by a sheriff, not by regular certified mail. I asked him, Are you sure? And he said, Completely sure. This is intimidation, not a real legal process. I felt relieved and furious at the same time. Had my own mother tried to scare me with a fake lawsuit? I went straight to my mother's house. I didn't call first. I just showed up and knocked on the door. She opened it, and when she saw me, her face changed from surprise to defensive. I told her, We need to talk about this letter. And I showed her the fake letter. She didn't even try to deny it. She said, You left me no choice, Rachel. You humiliated me in front of everyone, and I needed you to understand that there are consequences. I said, Mom, this is illegal. You sent me a fake letter impersonating a lawyer? That's fraud. She shrugged and said, I wasn't going to actually sue you. I just wanted you to get scared enough to take down the video and apologize publicly. I said, Apologize? Why should I apologize for telling the truth? And she yelled, Because you made me look like a bad mother in front of everyone. I yelled back, You are a bad mother, Mom. You've made me feel invisible my whole life. You've compared me to Audrey since I can remember. You didn't even go to my wedding because you didn't want your favorite daughter to feel bad. She said, It's not my fault that Audrey is easier to love than you. She's not dramatic or attention-seeking like you. I went quiet. Those words hurt more than everything else. More than her absence at the wedding. More than the fake letter. More than everything. Because she'd finally said it out loud. She'd finally admitted that she loved me less than Audrey. I said, Thank you for finally being honest. And I left. She yelled for me to come back. That we weren't done talking. But I was already in my car. I cried the whole way home. Christopher was waiting for me, and when he saw me crying, he just hugged me. I didn't have to explain anything. It's been like 3 weeks since that. My mother has sent me messages saying, We need to fix this, that I'm her daughter and she can't lose me. But she's never apologized. She's never said, Rachel, I'm sorry for not going to your wedding. I'm sorry for treating you differently than Audrey. I'm sorry for the fake letter. She just says, We need to get over it and move forward as a family. Audrey isn't talking to me either. My aunts are divided, some support me, and others think I went too far with the speech. My cousins are mostly on my side. Christopher's family has completely embraced me. His mother tells me I'm the daughter she always wanted, and that makes me cry every time. I don't know if I did the right thing. Sometimes I think I should have kept quiet, that I should have just let my mother not come to the wedding and that's it, without doing the speech. That I should have been the obedient daughter who doesn't cause problems. But then I remember all those years feeling less than, feeling invisible, and I think maybe it was okay to finally tell the truth. Even if it hurt, even if it caused drama, even if it cost me my relationship with my mother. Christopher says, I did the right thing, that you can't heal if you keep holding the pain inside. My therapist, yes, I started going to therapy after all this, says that setting boundaries is healthy even if the other person doesn't accept it. I sent my mother a message a few days ago. I told her, I'm not going to contact you unless you contact me with a real apology. An apology where you acknowledge how you've made me feel my whole life, where you admit that you treated me differently than Audrey, where you take responsibility for your actions. Until then, I need space to heal and protect my mental health. She hasn't responded. I guess that's answer enough. Audrey sent me a message after I told a cousin what I'd said to my mother, telling me I was being manipulative and that Mom didn't owe me any apology because I was the one who caused all this. I responded, Audrey, you're never going to understand because you've always been the favorite. You've never had to feel what I felt. And I blocked her. Christopher and I are doing well. Better than well. Actually, we moved to a bigger apartment last month. We're talking about having kids in a couple of years. Sometimes I worry about what kind of mother I'll be, if I'm going to repeat my mother's patterns without realizing it. But Christopher reminds me that the mere fact that I worry about that means I'm going to be aware, and I'm going to do it differently. I have nightmares sometimes where I'm at my wedding again, but this time my mother is there, and when I go to hug her, she disappears. I wake up crying, and Christopher holds me until I fall back asleep. Last week, I ran into one of my mother's clients at the supermarket. She recognized me from the video. Because yes, I'm locally famous now for reasons I never imagined. She told me, Honey, I stopped going to your mom's salon after seeing that video, not to judge her, but because it made me think about how I've also treated my daughters differently, and I realized I needed to change that. She thanked me. I cried in the cereal aisle. Maybe something good came out of all this after all. I don't know if my mother and I will ever have a relationship again someday. Honestly, I don't know if I want one. What I do know is that I finally feel free, and that has to be worth something.